guess
Recording is on.
All right. All right. Well, welcome to the Bitcoin Design Guide call on Fedimint. So, obviously, there's been quite a bit of chat about different people that are keen to contribute to the Fedimint project and what we could do with the website. I've been working on some guides in the background that were really setting out like logically how it all works, so that almost like pleb level how-to. So this is what the protocol is. This is how it works. This is how transactions flow. So people could understand that. As a matter of coincidence, that actually got merged today, and so the new website's gone live, and it's got a whole bunch of like knowledge base articles on that. So maybe we'll have a look at that in a moment, and I can give people a bit of a run from what they're thinking of. That doesn't change the fact that it still needs a bunch of design work. So it's, me doing some hacky stuff is not where we probably want to end up with that sort of stuff. But yep. So the idea was, who's interested in helping out? Maybe a quick run through of what's there on the live site now and how it's all structured. So what are the different things that we might want to think about from the design guide, like who's it for? And then there's a couple of different Figma boards. So I think, Jakob, you've put one up. There's another guy, Gene, but it doesn't look like he's on yet. And then just a bit of a Q&A, any questions about that? And maybe make a bit of a plan for how we might want to make some of these changes going forwards. Who's got time? Who's going to take the lead on what parts? That sound good?
Great.
I think we just lost him.
And the call is finished now.
Oh, that was quick.
Is on.
All right. So I went to share my screen and just nuked my session. There we go. Do you want? Maybe we do your screen share. You've got it up at the moment, Christoph. But actually, I'll do it.
Yeah, actually, it'll be better if you're going to be narrating. Better if you share it, because in the recording, it's just going to like show you talking, and like they're not going to be able to see Christoph's screen.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the site has three main sections to it. I guess there's the landing page. So we've got standard hero banner, click through to learn more. 3 key benefits of the Fedimint protocol being, community custody, privacy, and interoperability. So interoperability through Lightning. We're looking to retain like some of the history of what was in the Fedimint.org before. So I just really ported some of the content around, what was the prior art to this, who are the support and donations, and then obviously the links down the bottom. Very standard basic site there. So it's all built on Docusaurus. So it's a Docusaurus v2 site. So anything you can do in React, we can add on to this. I've just kept it nice and simple as a means of getting the content out. Because the big change here was actually getting all the guides done. So there's two more sections to the guide are really just to learn more, which is what's colloquially been called the wiki for the last month while we've been developing that, which is really the guides. And then you've got the resources and updates, which is the selection of the different articles in which Fedimint has been tagged so far. So it's pretty simple. It's just like a one-liner on what it is, the image, and then click through into there. So again, there's more stuff I'm sure we could do here to make that a little bit more pretty or more functional, but that's what we've got right now. And then the guts of the site is in the wiki here. So as I said, Docusaurus site built using collection of markdown pages. The idea is to give people the run through of, why might you want a Fedimint? So 3 pillars. You got your community custody, your financial privacy, and your scaling. So descriptions of how it impacts each of those and how it works. How it does the scaling aspects. So who are the federations? One of the big misconceptions that seem to see quite a lot is, the idea of like our Fedimint or the Fedimint, and the Fedimint will work. Whereas the reality of the situation is that there could be like hundreds of thousands of these Fedimints all over the place, and some of them are going to be small and they're going to be for families, and some of them are going to be much bigger for large communities, and some of them could just be in this space over here, which is the what we'd say is like the low third-party trust. So more like an exchange online, some anonymous services or something like this that you might have. It's all possible with Fedimint. It's a little bit harder to really think through the trust model there as well, and like how you would want to engage in that, because there are risks and trade-offs that come with the Fedimints. What is the Fedimint? So this diagram's made its way around a few different places so far. I think Blockstream poached it the other day. So this is logically what are the components that are involved. So it's reasonably technical as a diagram in the sense that it's technically all the pieces that are there, so you can get your head around it. But I think also reasonably high level that you can map it out in one go. So from there, we go into, you know, what are the core technology components? So we've got eCash, federations, and lightning swaps, and how do each of those work? We can click through into the section down here. So we've got the canonical examples of, you know, the blind signatures and how they work, how that's represented in the eCash token, and then how it's verified. If I come back to here, we've got how the Fedimint transactions work. So I'm keen to animate some of these diagrams as well at some point, so we can actually show the flow of the invoice provided over here, the eCash moves and then gets swapped in the Fedimint. But it's all laid out in the text, so you can follow against those numbers, like how it works with Lightning, and then how it works with another mint, which is an extension of the Lightning use case. One bit that I thought was pretty important was to look at the trade-offs. So there's a decent amount of work gone into, you know, what's the trust model that's being used here, and then what are the risks that gives you that you need to be aware of, and how can you go about mitigating those. There's a lot more work done currently on the custodial risk and the debasement risk, because these are the big ones. You know, your custodial risk is not your keys, not your coins risk. So you are giving up some aspect of control here. So the federation owns the Bitcoin keys, and you own the IOU that's redeemed for Bitcoin keys. So what does that risk mean, and how can we really drill into, you know, what it means to actually give that up, and how you go about mitigating that. Similarly with the debasement, it's not that you can invent more Bitcoins, but, you know, this is a custodian. So as with any custodian, they could always issue more claims than they do for Bitcoin that they hold in the vault. So what does that look like? How do we understand it from, like, this is what a guardian sees, this is what a user sees. What happens if you get a corrupt quorum onside the guardian, and like, how does that play out? And then how do you execute on this risk, and what's the impact of that going forwards, and how could we mitigate it? So it's, you know, it's not super low level detail. It should be followable at a kind of logical level, but that's the guts of this. And then we've got a few different definitions of different terms. So what are blind signatures and eCash, and how does that work? You know, what's the honey badger Byzantine fault tolerant consensus that's used inside the model? This was an Eric one, something I was writing. I'll expand on the Shamir secret sharing, but at the moment it really just links out to the page on that. eCash, what's eCash? This is some of the details of the Fedimint architecture, so slightly more technically how it all fits together. And then in the frequently asked questions, there's a lot of stuff that crops up inside the Telegram group and in the Discord. So this is going to become the place where we'll start answering a lot of those and just pointing people back to more. So as you can see, of the 3 bits of the site, you've kind of got like the splash page to work with around, okay, well, how do we set the mood and the benefits for the site and the protocol? There's the documentation, which is really, is probably like good enough. I don't know what we'd want to do inside there as well, but that's probably more about just generating content and getting it out there, getting it checked. And then the resources and the updates, it's kind of your blog post style stuff, which I'm sure we could fancy up. So that's where the system is at the moment. So I guess the next question then would be, do we want to dive into maybe your mood board, Jakob, or is there any questions based on what I was just talking through there?
I have a question.
Yep.
Who is this website for? So, and also a little bit further down, it says, "Hey, this is Fedimint," and then in the prior art, it says, "Fedimint is prior art."
Yeah. So the who is it for is the way I was kind of categorizing this as almost like a pleb level overview of the thing. So this isn't for an end user of a Fedimint app. It's probably more for somebody that might be interested in becoming a guardian, or the general Bitcoin pleb audience of people that are just interested in learning more about the protocol. It's more kind of educational at that level right now. I think with it being a protocol, it's kind of, you don't necessarily want to go into the minutiae of how it runs, because a lot of that will probably get offloaded into the various implementations. So really, it's the high level of like, how does it all fit together? What does it work? And then you would assume a reasonable level of technical competence.
Okay,
But,
and at this early point.
Sorry?
Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
The Fedimint, that said Minimint until, I don't know, a few hours ago. It was changed because just because the name of Minimint and Fedimint has been changed, and they're basically exactly the same thing. We're probably going to add just in brackets, was formerly known as Minimint, and it's been taken forwards as Fedimint. So it's its own prior art in a way. That was the explanation.
So this is the difference is the Fedimint protocol and the Fedimint and implementation, Fedimint Rust implementation. Or
that I think that was originally the thinking, was that Fedimint was the idea, and it could be one of many different implementations, and Minimint was the actual implementation that was being done. And so if you look at the if we go back to back here, you know, it was always in the block stream when they provided funding to Eric back in, I guess, October 27th, 2021. You know, a lot of that was all about Minimint and doing the Minimint implementation of the Fedimint idea. And then the Fedimint.org website originally was categorizing the research of all the different ways you could do it. And then Minimint has really just morphed into Fedimint. And then the idea has become a little bit more centered around that implementation as the standard on the protocol. But
okay. It's just, I mean, this might be me coming more from a development side, but I sometimes have a hard time figuring out, like, okay, what is the difference? There's this protocol thing, and then there are a bunch of other things that have the same name. Yeah, so it might just be me.
Yep.
I don't, I wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
but at this early stage, this seems to be more likely for people who are willing to contribute, willing to help out, people who are early on tech who just want to try it out or follow it, not really the broad audience.
Yes. Okay. I'd say so.
I mean, I'm seeing kind of like a couple different potential audiences here. So like you kept saying pleb level, and I think that term can be subject to interpretation, but I'm seeing there's like one that could be people who are just kind of generally curious about what's going on in the space and like to learn. And then you said something else about like people becoming guardians. So it seems like another potential person reading this could be someone who wants to launch their own federation. Would that ring true with you?
Yeah, I think that tracks. I mean, in my head there, I'd be thinking, after the launch of Bitcoin Beach, there's several other communities that you see popping up and talking about various different implementations or ideas around the same sort of community bank type model. So I think there was the Bitcoin Lake, and you had the Bitcoin Jungle over in Costa Rica. So I would imagine that like most of those communities are going to be interested in Fedimint as well. And then the idea is, okay, well, how do I learn anything about it? So I guess I've always kind of felt that a lot of Bitcoin documentation seems to be done through just podcasts and GitHub repos. So this is maybe the visual version of a podcast and a GitHub repo. And then
your third kind of audience might even be someone who actually wants to join, and like a developer who wants to actually contribute to the project and understand it, more deeply, so that they could actually get involved in building the protocol too.
Yeah.
I love what I'm seeing here. This has been I've been kind of doing my own homework on Fedimint, and the documentation you put together here is super helpful, I think.
Cool.
Another type of user would be like a wallet creators who just want to, I don't know, add interoperability with Fedimint without necessarily creating their own mint, I guess. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean the Mint is open source protocol, so really anybody should be able to fire them up. It would be interesting to see.
No, that's an interesting point you brought up, Jakob, about the interoperability, because there's this whole idea of Lightning swaps, and that you can have an LSP's Lightning node that could facilitate swaps between eCash and Bitcoin on Lightning. So it seems like that could be another kind of potential audience, of like the person, the Lightning node operator that wants to do business with a federation.
It's like similar to the Stratum website, where you have miners, manufacturers, and pool operators as three distinct audiences, and there are different pages for each one. I think that was the plan.
Yeah, so maybe you'd alter the benefits for the different audiences. So
it's also the how do I adopt this thing question, which is different for different paths.
So it seems like we have five kind of groups of users who might be audience.
Yeah, what to do if you're a Guardian, what to do if you're a wallet creator, what to do if you're a Lightning. No, that makes sense.
So the Fedimint under the prior art, is that an implementation of this, the current one? Or is that also, because prior art to me sounds like this is not active anymore. This is like in the bins of history.
I largely agree, but it is referring to both itself as in its previous form and future.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm starting to get it. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. As I say, I think until about a couple of hours ago, it was Minimint as the prior art, and then Minimint has now been renamed into Fedimint, with sort of recognizing the history of Minimint. So it might get pulled back to that. That was a PR. I think if you look on GitHub, I think Eric pushed that one in. It's his project. So, I mean, that's cool. But is it worth going into your Figma file, Jakob?
Sure.
Did you want to present? I'll try not to throw myself out of the meeting.
Well, there's. I was just doing, explorations, nothing really serious yet. I was in a vacation now, so I came back and I can continue with that. So, should I show my screen?
Yeah, sure.
You see it?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just an idea of circles as a kind of communities, right? And how to. This is obviously very much over the top. So I was just playing, it's just having fun with it. But I was trying to figure out to have something, kind of more sexy than just boring kind of documentation page. And so I was even thinking about doing some kind of just using circles as a part of navigation, but that's perhaps maybe too much. So this is basically it. But I was trying to kind of write down some kind of tags, which like hashtags on what kind of stuff we should focus on during the for the landing page. And it's also just a grouped themes kind of, which I guess people like the community peaceful, kind of a feel vibe. This is just what I found. It uses green, but obviously the palette is not that important at the beginning. And this could utilize some kind of communities photos from El Salvador or Bitcoin Jungle or the one from South America. If they, well, although I don't know if we should use it if they haven't implemented Fedimint yet, but this is something like we could cooperate with them to use it. So we will have like real photos. Yeah, and then there's this kind of minimalistic style we could follow or kind of combine with the community peaceful style. More modern, so more like gradients, more kind of fancy looking. And this is my first explorations of circles. You can see some other, also in your illustrations that you could kind of connect that idea and make it cohesive with illustrations on the landing page. Yeah, this is this is probably our top. Yeah, this is Gene's. Yeah, and that's the documentation part, which is, I guess, done. The IPFS is another like open protocol that the landing page. I would just paste it here to just kind of check out what the other protocols have done. Yeah, and yeah, this is Gene's work on the on the page. So he's not here, so I can show it. Just using also the community type and feel, very calm down, peaceful photos. Yeah, so that's it. That's very early stage. I wasn't sure when I was doing this. I wasn't even sure if I should, like, if we only want the landing page or we also would be including the documentation page within this design, or the documentation page is like as a separate thing. So I guess, as I understand you now, it's probably we should kind of make it one page, right? And adjust the documentation design to the landing page.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like, what everybody else thinks. My gut feel is it's probably the thing to improve is the landing page and maybe the those sort of journeys we talked about. So, who am I and how do I get started and engage with this thing? But I know, what do you think, Christoph, Stephen?
Yeah, it's really awesome to see all this work, Jacob. I think you mentioned that people seemed like drawn to the like peaceful community kind of imagery, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It gives a lot of times when people talk about Fedimint, they're talking about kind of deploying it to the global south, and that I think that it also just makes sense from the perspective of when we're talking about technology, it makes sense to keep in mind, the kinds of people we're going to build the technology for. So I think, like showing the community and all that kind of stuff, the photos of happy people is like always a good thing. I think, Gene was experimenting with some of that with his, and I think that, his landing page designs look very nice. The primary comment I would make on those is that it feels to me like something that is designed for an app that you can download right away off of the App Store. Where I think I think that this project is still a little bit earlier stage than that. Back to your circles idea, I think that that and combining that with like the peaceful imagery is a really cool idea. There's something conceptually really fun about the circles because, obviously Pete's using it in his graphics. I think you made those, Pete, the hand-drawn graphics and all that. Yeah. It's an idea that keeps coming up in conversations. Like Justin was bringing it up when he did the Fedimint call with us, just this idea that, it's not one single Fedimint, it's multiple federations. And so I think the circle idea is really cool. And I think that what you're doing with the circles there, just from a like aesthetic perspective, my thoughts are that it seems like the Fedimint group has already settled on this like logo that's like
Yeah.
a cube that has it's like, you know, you look at it, it looks like a diamond from one angle, but it's really a cube made out of F's. So it seems to be the logo they're adopting. And then the circles are this very, you know, this radial shape and all of that. And you know, I would consider how would you marry those two ideas? Like, how would you take the circle, this like really hard looking, hard edged logo, very kind of stiff, rigid typeface? How would you marry that with the circles? You know, maybe instead of circles, they're like, you know, a diamond shape, or maybe, you know, sometimes the circles have like, you know, hard edged lines that kind of, you know, cut between them or something, just so that it's like you can use the circle concept, but it's kind of tied to the same aesthetic as the logo. That would be my main thoughts on the circle one.
Yeah, that's a good thought. That's kind of it'd be nice to kind of have some kind of using the shape of the logo to maybe I don't know, use it as, just my first thought, like use some part of shape of this shape as a kind of connector between mints. Or this is like one idea, or just like as you say, marry is a good word. Marry these two shapes or concepts.
Yeah. So I really like the idea of this community focus as well, peaceful community, and the, you know, when I was looking at the scribbles and the images, I almost want to see hand-drawn illustrations of people and not real people, because this is the protocol website. This is the general, it's the idea, it's not the implementation. That also goes back to something Steven said, where it's like, hey, this feels like an app I can download, but that's not this website. So maybe some hand-drawn people in the style of those scribbles. Maybe the scribbles are the style that you go for, where it's less perfectly geometric, you know, perfect shapes type of deal. But you just pick up the scribble style. I think it could be an interesting to look into. The circles, I think the idea is not, but it's not refined enough for me to be super convinced about it. I think I have to see a little bit more of it. Otherwise, it's, you know, it's circles. But I would need to see it combined, used in some specific way that's maybe unique to Fedimint, or coupled with a few other details, elements, or animation, or just something else. Yeah, cool to see a little bit more of that. And yeah, I liked how Gene used that shape, the logo shape, for his images. Maybe that's a way to, I mean, the circle is a shape, but you could also use that shape for, instead of the circles, like, you know, things clicking together in different ways, like a puzzle. But yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I always love seeing these. Yeah, that was helpful. I guess the other thing is, I think you can cut this down. So you have a branding project here, branding exercise. Then you have an information architecture one, which can be done completely separately. Like, you know, writing page content, the structure, identifying who's it for, and writing content for those different groups. That can be done completely separately from the branding activity. And I think the website design can also be done to a certain extent without having a full brand exploration and definition done. You can iterate through this a little bit. You don't have to have all of this at once. Yeah, you know, when I look at that, it's like, it's cool to see all these people coming together, although they seem like random people working at a WeWork. I'd be curious to see if with illustration style or photography, if it could be more what the actual people, or what the kind of the ideal people would be that end up using the Fedimint, the family, local community. That could be visualized somehow. It'd be interesting.
Well, you made a remark earlier, Jakob, about the, you know, like you know, does whatever community use this software, and you know, should we get their permission to use this photo? One thing that's nice is if it's you know, just like a simple illustrative approach, then you never have to worry about you know, who's actually using it or not.
Yeah, I quite like the idea of the illustrative pictures. I think going back to what you were saying about the being a protocol site, Christoph, like it probably does set that up a bit nicer to frame it for the person coming in that, like, yeah, this is not real people. Well, I mean, real people will use it, but you know, there's implementation work to be done prior to it then becoming a real thing. It's more protocol level. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. This just feels like a SaaS product, or kind of, as you said, just download the app and you can use it, which is misleading.
Yeah. I mean, particularly like stock photos like that always look a bit like it's something else anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sure like different imagery will make it come alive a bit differently, but and some of the wording I think on those particular designs on screen there, like it almost makes it again sound like the Fedimint or like the particular bank that it might be, as opposed to this, you know, glorious world where there's 100,000 banks in every country and they all have to compete for you, which is obviously a nicer place to be.
I'm just curious, should we like let the users know about Fedi here? So like here's actually implementation, one of the implementations we have. I mean that some team did, right? A separate product. Because right now there's no, I think on the landing page there's no mention of Fedi, right?
No, there's not. I mean, they are two separate pieces. Like one would be a company that's implementing this, and then the other one being the protocol. So it's yeah. I mean, obviously, with it being early days, there is more tie with Eric being there, but I don't know. My gut feel is you probably want to keep the two separate, because otherwise it'd be too easy to see them as the same thing, in the same way that you wouldn't really want a Lightning.
Yeah.
You know,
it'd be like
a Lightning network, talking about Lightning Labs. But
yeah,
it's like once there's multiple implementations, I guess it might make more sense, and then you call them as the many. But yeah.
Well, and I think the idea is that, like, if this, I mean, you're right. It would be like if, you know, all of the, you know, like, you know, Lightning Bolt documents, you know, were, you know, brand, you know, had branding specific to, you know, whatever company originated the document. I think the idea with this, with the Fedi versus Fedimint, if I'm understanding it right, is that, you know, another company, in theory, could decide they want to work on Fedimint protocol as well. And they could start their own company, and they could have their employees, you know, make contributions to the same GitHub and collaborate on the same protocol. I think that the product that Fedi is going to be offering is kind of like a separate thing than the actual protocol, which is supposed to be open for anyone to use.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, you know, someone goes to Fedimint.org and he's like, did anyone implemented it? Like, where can I check it, right? And I think this information, who implemented it, should be maybe not on the landing page, but should be included somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so yeah, we show sponsors, so like, and we can show sponsors as like, you know, logos instead of this and stuff like that. So maybe we can have like who implemented Fedimint. And I guess when there's only one product, it's not that sexy. Then we only did three. But
yeah, I think that makes sense. I think a good way to handle that would be talking about the information architecture piece of saying, okay, well, who are the people coming to the site, and then how do we want to catch them, and what's the journey they go on? So, you know, the person that's looking for the implementation or the apps or the places they can get to use it might be the user use case, which is probably not really who this is designed for at the moment. But again, similarly, like a Guardian, again, might have a similar question where they just want to go and see who has actually implemented it and how can I get it up and running. And then you've got like the developer use case. Well, they're probably better off getting pointed towards the GitHub or something. But again, like I think that information architecture piece would probably work well to do this. So maybe I'll ask for some expert advice on this one then from the designers in the room. But would you really want to look at, like, say, these are two separate projects, as you mentioned, around like the branding of the website front page and how we might change that to, and the information architecture and the journeys. Would you really want to do a look at the website and branding without doing the information architecture up front? My gut feel is you probably want to flesh out those user journeys, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Well, I mean, I think it's a valid idea to improve both of those things. I just think that those things don't necessarily, like, it's not like one necessarily depends on the other. Like, you can iterate and mess around with branding ideas and mood boards and visuals and colors and all of that. And all that can happen in, a couple of people's Figma files. And then, the content architecture, what kind of text are we writing? Who are we writing it for? What's the most important thing on the page? That can happen in, a Google document, for example. And, not saying those people shouldn't talk to each other, but like they're kind of different things, and they can, like, they can be done independently. They don't have to be done independently, but they can be done independently.
Yeah, I feel like, for example, probably regarding the architecture, I don't think we need to show it like the screed 1, screed 2, and open transactions here. We can show in some kind of very fragmented way, like these three features. I know, maybe a word about risk, or a word about some other trade-offs, whatever, right? And just really limit the amount of text on here. But yeah, I thought someone said something. Yeah, so I agree. Just working separately. There's probably just two tasks, and maybe I would like to, I think, kind of doubling both, but I probably feel more confident in working on the architecture. Yeah.
Sorry, Jakob, were you saying you think you'd be more confident working on the architecture or the branding?
Yeah, but on the other hand, I also want to improve kind of my more UI landing skills. So I'll be happy to double in both, but depending, I don't know how many people will engage, and are there any like deadlines, or it's really, or we don't feel there's like any rush with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the background to how like this version of the site came along was that I was writing up. Well, I was hammering the Telegram group with a lot of different questions about how things worked, and I think Obi had a Google Doc that he was managing with some of the FAQs, which I was filling up a little bit as well. And Eric had mentioned, like, it'd be nice to use some of it on the website. And so I just went away and built this without really thinking too much about the design, but really just as a vehicle for the document components to get that straight. So that could then, originally I thought that was just going to get appended to the current site as like an extra subdomain. And then at that point, the question was, could we just pull all the content from the current site onto this site? So, well, yeah, technically it could be done. So that's how this came about. So I think in terms of like roles or getting anything or deadlines or anything like that, it's really a case of, it's a community open source protocol. So if you want to contribute to stuff, then just start, I think, seems to be how it works.
Yeah, I'd be willing to collaborate with you on this, Jakob.
I mean, for branding, I found it useful when there are multiple people throwing in different ideas in different directions, because you get a nice broad. It just kind of stretches what people think about in different ways, and then you can go through 2-3 different iterations, and you just kind of pick and choose. You just have discussions and say, we like this and like that, and then you come up with 2 concepts maybe that you think are cool, then you discuss them, then you pick again, and then you have your final direction, and then you just go for that. That's what I found useful. And there's always a lot that gets discarded, but maybe sometimes even those things they find use in other projects as well. I like that. I like that process. So I think it's good if you have. It can be helpful if multiple people chip in this early parameter exploration.
Yeah. So what do you think is the best way of organizing something like that then? Would we set a date in a couple of weeks to come back and have a look at, again, review some of those mood boards, and then move the collaboration onto the Slack?
It seems like reasonable. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that can work. I think you do throughout this. You need to, just keep up with people a little bit if there's a PM in the project. So, yeah, set a couple weeks for people to work out different ideas, and then let me show you. I think I still have a file for that for LDK, or might even have a video for that process. I'll have to look that up.
You've probably got the link somewhere that you're thinking of. I agree. I think just regular, I think just regular check-ins are always a good idea.
I mean, obviously everybody here arrived at this time. I chose this time slot because it was the same one as the Bitcoin Design Guide meeting, but then offset by the alternative week. I mean, does that seem to fit?
Oh, you said alternating weeks, so it's not conflicting with the guide call?
Yeah, or if there's other time slots that tend to get good attendance.
Okay, so I have an example here. So I think, Stephen, was this your idea at the top?
No, that was Ed's, but I'm the one like right next to him. I'm the sketch, but I've got a lot of stuff on that page, but that particular one is Ed's.
Yeah, so there was idea A here. So Ed sketched out this idea, this logo idea for LDK. And second one, that was mine. I was like, well, let's use these crazy graphics here. What was that? Future of money. I don't know, some ideas there. And then idea C was around using emoji as, versatile branding here. So those were just rough ideas, right? And then each idea was turned into kind of a concept. So the emoji one was, being more playful with the language, just being a little bit more goofy, more colorful, using emoji everywhere. This one was a bit more serious here, sharp angles, strong electric colors. And then, you can just see a different style of illustrations here. So that was kind of the middle. So that was concept, idea, then was concept. And then out of those, we had more discussions. And then we refined those a little bit further to get a better idea of what the final ones would look like. And then we picked one. And it ended up being this one here. And I think we mixed some other stuff in. Yeah. So that was the process that I started with. So it starts very loose with ideas, concepts, directions, and then you pick one and you just go for it. And each one, you can throw words at it. It's like efficient, approachable, something transmittable, playful.
Yeah.
So something like that I think's helpful.
All right.
And you have 2 different concepts already at least 2 from what Jakob showed earlier.
yeah, I'm happy to refine my idea, kind of play with it, different layouts. Maybe I also have some ideas how to change the information architecture. So maybe I would start, like I think Steven said, Google Docs. I'll play it out there and maybe use it as to play with my ideas. And then I hope Jean develop his ideas, and maybe I know it'd be nice to have someone else developing their own, so we can have more choice.
Maybe the third one could be some type of more illustration style, but for that we need somebody who can do illustrations naturally. Or we could pick some from, we find some library or so.
Well,
or even to rough it in, right? We could pick. It's a still mood board level.
Yeah, I posted on the mood board. I posted no good illustrator. I don't know if it's he or she, but and I don't know if he or she would like to cooperate. But it'd be great to have like this kind of illustrations, illustrating community, for example. But although it's kind of manga style, so I don't know if it will fit.
Can you send me a link to that mood board, to that Figma file?
One second.
All right, so it feels like we've got a couple of streams then where we've got the branding and we've got the information architecture. We can set up the document and a shared Figma. And then maybe if we were meeting every 2 weeks, we want to do like one session maybe on the branding, and then the following time we work on the information architecture, with the idea that then it gives us a little bit more space in between. That sort of cadence work. There you go. Crew of no.
There's some badass people using running Fedimints.
Yeah, that's to say too like kind of aggressive tone for the community feel. But yeah.
You could replace that backpack with the S9 on it.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find some good illustrators within the community. Maybe we can reach out to them and they could help voluntarily. I don't know.
Yeah, and for the information architecture, I think it's simple stuff like going over the homepage, saying exactly what needs to be on the homepage. If these 3 different types of people show up here, what do they need to know? It's like, okay, what is this whole thing about? What is this, like, what is a Fedimint? What are the main features? Like right now you have these 3 things at the top, but it's not clear, are those about what's on this website or what this project as a whole does, or are those features of implementations of Fedimint or the protocol? And then how do you contribute? Supporters are good. Prior art, I'm not sure if that needs to go on the homepage or if that could be a little bit further down. Maybe you want a deep link into, maybe you want to have FAQs or so, pull up some of these questions up to the front. So just going over that, I think and that's a total separate effort from the homepage. I think you have a ton of really good content, and I like all those scribble illustrations too.
Yeah, I agree. I think on we can just use that and choose some of the subjects from the documentation and just simplify it and put on the landing. We just need to choose, like, do we want to show any risk on the landing or not? Do we want to show, this characteristic or this part of Fedimint simplified or not, or just show it on the documentation? That's my first kind of thought how to.
All right. Well, let's say if I propose we do, I use this slot, given we've met here and people turn up, but do it on the odd weeks of the design guide. Does that work, or is that going to be an issue for people?
Works for me.
I'm just looking at Christoph's face.
Yeah. No, that works for me. I think, off the top of my head. And if another designer, if Gene or an illustrator or so hops in, you can always change it to make it work for the people who are really hands-on.
Yeah. Well, I'll set it up as I'll put a couple of recurring meetings in there. And then should we suggest, say, Jakob, do you want to take sort of ownership? You've consolidated Gene's stuff in here as well. Maybe we that could be the main file that we work from as the, what are the different ideas, and we can come back to that in 2 weeks, and then in 4 weeks we can look at the information architecture. I'll set up a document for that. Does that work?
Yeah, sounds okay.
All right. Oh, all right, that's a plan. And maybe reach
What
out
is a
to.
off-chain ramen?
You can buy those posters and
Yeah.
I think t-shirts as well.
I was just wearing my off-chain ramen shirt yesterday.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Is the
Oh,
quality
nice.
good? Like the
What?
quality?
Mhm.
Is the
Yeah,
quality?
very good quality.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's very good quality.
All right.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. And the place to track the collaboration is, do you have a GitHub repo or somewhere where you have like tasks, or do you want a spot for that right now?
The best bet is probably the Discord that we've been using. There's a Fedimint Discord where a lot of the apps stuff is getting tracked in there. So if you're not a member of that, that's probably a good spot to go to, because then you also get to see what's going on in the rest of the protocol design. So it is available for the link at the bottom in the footer page of fedimint.org, which didn't used to be the case. So
And if this is a regular call, we can start shelling it in the Fedimint Discord design channel as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Joining the Discord right now.
All right. Fantastic. Okay, I'm gonna have to hop off because I'm gonna get ready for another meeting in a minute. But I will thank you for joining. That was good.
Okay, awesome. I'm gonna stop the recording real quick.
Mm-hmm.